Good evening, everyone. In the last session, we discussed about how to deal with users and groups in the Linux operating system. Linux is multi-user based operating system, nothing but multiple users can access single Linux machine at a time and they can perform multitasking. So when we create a Linux virtual machine, by default, we are getting one default user, that is EC2 user. Along with that, we can create some other users also, and we can perform operations on that. Fine. So yesterday we have seen how to create users, okay, how to delete the users, how to create the groups, how to add the users to the groups, and how to remove the users from the group, how to see one user belongs to how many groups, and in one group which users are available. All that information we have seen by using the commands. And we also discussed about one of the most important configuration file in the Linux, which is called sudoers file. Okay, what is the purpose of that sudoers file? Sudoers file, which is used to configure users with the privileges. So which user can perform which activity, that we can configure by using sudoers file in the Linux. Right? So to open the sudoers file, we are going to use vi sudo command. Then next one, by default, in the Linux machine, EC2 user is available. That EC2 user is having PEM file. Okay. By default, EC2 user will be available. That EC2 user will have PEM file, and using that PEM file, we are connecting with the machine. But in the interview, they will ask you a question: how to enable password-based authentication in the Linux machine? In the Linux machine, by default, password authentication will be available as no. So if you want to enable password-based authentication, we need to make it as yes. Okay. So once we make that as yes, then we need to restart our SSHD service in the Linux machine. This is the task I have given in the last class. So anyone able to complete this task? Did anyone try that? How to enable password-based authentication in the Linux machine? Are you guys able to do that? Some people are saying completed. What about the remaining people? What about the remaining people? Did you complete that password-based authentication task in the Linux machine? No? Yeah. Let me go to my Linux machine. I'm connecting with my Linux machine now. By using Git Bash, I'm having a PEM file for that. Okay. I'm connecting with my machine. Git Bash option I'm using. Make SSH connection to connect with that machine. Then fine. I'm able to connect with my Linux machine. Then in order to enable password-based authentication in the Linux machine, we need to open SSHD config file. Okay, open that file, sudo vi command. Password authentication by default will be no. In the yesterday session, we made this as yes. Okay, so I no need to make any changes to the file now. That file is modified yesterday itself. Now, let me create one user in this machine. Sudo user add some Raju. I'm creating a user with a name called Raju and set some password for the Raju. Sudo password Raju. It is asking what is the password that you want for Raju. Okay, I'm giving some password for this user. Password is updated successfully. Now, I want to connect with the Linux machine as a Raju. For the Raju user, PEM file is not required because Raju user created, and for the Raju user, I have updated password also. Now, I want to connect with this machine as a Raju user. And Raju user should be able to perform any operation in the Linux machine. So let me give the permission for the Raju user. So to give the permission for the Raju user, let me go to sudoers file in the machine. Let me configure Raju user in the sudoers file so that Raju can perform any operation here. Okay, so I'm configuring Raju in this sudoers file. For Raju, I'm giving all the privileges. Root user having all the privileges. Ashok user is having all the privileges. Now Raju user also having all the privileges. Then let me save this file. Control X, Y, enter. Then sudoers file modified and I have updated Raju. So first we have enabled password authentication in the SSH config file. Then we created Raju user and we updated password for the Raju. Then we configured Raju in the sudoers file. Now let me exit from this machine. Now I want to connect with this machine. Now I want to connect with this machine as a Raju user. I closed my Git Bash. To do that connection, you can use mobile external software or you can use PuTTY, you can use WinSCP, multiple ways available. You can go to browser and you can download PuTTY software, guys. So you can go to browser and you can download PuTTY software and you can use PuTTY software in order to connect with this Linux machine. Okay, so go to Google and type download PuTTY. Okay, you can download and install PuTTY. How we are using Git Bash to connect with the Linux machine. Similarly, we can use PuTTY also as a SSH client to connect with the Linux machine. It is a free software. Download PuTTY. So you can go here and based on your operating system, you can download the PuTTY software. So in my system already PuTTY software is available. I have downloaded and I have installed. So let me open PuTTY software now. I'm opening PuTTY software in my machine. Open PuTTY. Using this PuTTY, I want to connect with the Linux machine. So it is asking what is the IP address of your Linux machine. Okay, with which Linux machine you want to connect. Let us give IP address of that Linux machine. My first Linux machine, take the public IP address. I'm giving the IP address of the machine. Okay, then click on open. I'm giving only IP. I'm trying to connect with this machine. It is asking, how do you want to connect with this machine? Okay, so how do you want to log in? You want to log in as which user? Okay, so you need to give the username in order to connect with that machine. Okay, so I'm opening my PuTTY software. I will enter my IP address and I will click on open. It is asking login as Raju. What is the password for the Raju? Whatever the password you have given at the time of account creation, enter that password. Now you see, I connected to this machine as a Raju user. I connected with this Linux machine as a Raju user. Are you guys able to understand my point? Are you guys able to understand my point? We connected to this machine as a Raju user. Appearance, font. I want to change the font, increase the font. Okay, click on apply. Now I connected to this machine as a Raju user. Now you check, who am I? I'm Raju. What is my present working directory? /home/Raju. So with this, we are able to connect with the Linux machine as a Raju with a password. That means by default in the Linux machine, password authentication will be no. So you need to enable the password authentication and you need to configure the user in the sudoers file with the admin privileges. Are you able to understand? Guys, are you able to understand? IP address I have given public IP address rates. So we have given public IP address in order to connect with that machine. So I will give you the steps that I have followed to enable password authentication for the user. Okay, create one user and log in into that Linux machine with the new user account by using username and password. So what is the first step that I have done, guys? The first step is we need to connect with this Linux machine as a EC2 user. So I used my Git Bash and I connected with the Linux machine as a EC2 user. Then step 2, create one new user. You can give any name for the user. I created a user called Ram. Then you need to set the password for the Ram. We need to set the password for the user because we want to use that password to connect with that Linux machine. The first step, connect to Linux VM with a EC2 user using PEM file. Then create one new user called Ram or Raj, whatever you want. Then update password for that user. Once that password is updated, then configure the user in the sudoers file with all the privileges. Okay, configure the user in the sudoers file. Once it is configured, then enable password authentication in the SSH config file. Once the password authentication is completed, then you need to restart your SSH service. Once it is restarted, then you can use PuTTY and you can connect to the Linux VM as a ROM user using username and password. Okay, use PuTTY and connect to Linux VM as a user using username and password. So this is the process I have followed in order to connect with the Linux machine with username and password. When you create the Linux machine, by default, EC2 user will be available. For the EC2 user, password will not be available. For the EC2 user only, PEM file will be available. But for the new user that we created, we enabled password and password authentication we have enabled. Then we are able to connect with the Linux machine by using username and password. This is famous interview question. Okay, how to connect with Linux machine by using username and password by enabling password authentication. So in the real time, you are going to connect with the Linux machine by using username and password only. Okay, when you are working in the project, so for the Linux machine, user accounts will be created. Those user account, username and password will be given to you. Using that, you are going to connect with that Linux machine. Are you clear with my point? Are you clear with my point? How to enable password-based authentication in the Linux machine? You can read the steps, then you will understand clearly. Connect to the Linux machine as EC2 user using PEM file. Then create one new user in the Linux. Update the password for that user. Then configure that user in the sudoers file. Then enable password-based authentication in the config file. Then restart SSH service. Then use PuTTY and connect to the Linux VM as a new user using his username and password. Are you guys clear? Are you guys clear with my point? Right. Now, sir, can I use PuTTY to connect with the Linux machine in the real time? Yes, you can use PuTTY also to connect with the Linux machine in the real time. Can I use mobile extra? Can I use Git Bash? Yes, you can use Git Bash, you can use mobile extra, you can use PuTTY. Any SSH client you can use in order to connect with the Linux machine. And you can perform operations on the Linux machine. Perfect. So with this, we understood how to deal with users in the Linux machine, how to deal with groups in the Linux machine, what is sudoers file in the Linux machine, what is password-based authentication in the Linux machine, and how to enable password-based authentication. Okay, enabling password-based authentication. How to enable password-based authentication. Okay, connect with the Linux VM using username and password. Process to connect with the Linux machine by using username and password. Instead of EC2 user, I'm using Raj user to connect with that. All of you, Read the 7 steps that I have followed. Read the 7 steps that I have followed and let me know. If you are clear, then please respond in the chat box clear. Are you clear, guys? I'm not getting response. Okay, yeah. If you want me to show once again how to connect with PuTTY, okay. Now see here. I have created a user and I want to connect with that Linux machine by using PuTTY. So let me open PuTTY software. I have downloaded and installed PuTTY. Then I have a Linux machine. In this Linux machine, there is a public IP, guys. To which Linux machine you want to connect, select that Linux machine. Then you can see public IP. Copy its public IP. Go to PuTTY. Give the public IP address. Click on open. When you click on open, it is asking username. Okay, my username and password of that user. All right. So with this, I'm able to connect with that Linux machine by using PuTTY software. If you want to increase the font size, then change the settings, go to appearance, font used in this terminal, bold font, some size you can give so that the size will be increased. Click on apply. Now I connected to this Linux machine as Raju user. You can check present working directory. As we discussed, every user will have their own home directory. Now Raju user having Raju home directory. Who am I? I connected to this machine as a Raju user. Now in this machine, Raju can check what is the content available in the home directory. Nothing available. Raju can create the file, touch f1.txt. The file is available. And Raju can edit the file, vi command, f1.txt, insert mode. This is f1 file created by Raju. This is f1 file created by Raju. Then save the file and close the file. Then cat f1.txt. So you can use PuTTY also and you can perform operations. So we used Git Bash. Now we are using PuTTY. What is the benefit? Okay. So when you use PuTTY, you can use duplicate session. You can use a new session. So some more advanced options will be available. Duplicate session option is available. You want to connect with this machine again. Now you see login as another user. Okay. Login as another user. Now I can connect with this machine as Raju and Raju password I am giving. Okay, so you can connect with this machine. Access denied because password is wrong. Rani Raju. Yes, whatever the password I have given with this, I'm able to connect with this machine. Successfully, I connect. So 2 sessions I have created. That means 2 users. With the same user I created 2 sessions now we can perform. So multiple people can connect with this Linux machine like this and they can perform multitasking on this Linux machine. Multiple users can connect with this Linux machine and they can perform operations. So in the real time, some people will use PuTTY, some people will use Git Bash, some people will use Mobile Extra in order to connect with the Linux machine. Anything is fine, whichever you are comfortable that you can use it. Are you clear? And we can switch from one user to another user also. How can we switch from one user to another user? sudo su command will be available to switch from one user to another user also. Sudo, what is the meaning of sudo here, guys? Can anyone tell me what is the meaning of sudo here? What is the meaning of sudo here? What is the meaning of sudo user? Sudo means super user doing. All the admin privileges will be available. So if the user is configured in the sudoers file, then they can perform the sudo operations. Admin user privileges will be available. Perfect. So with this, whatever the task I have given yesterday, we are able to complete that task. Next one. In the Linux, another important topic, guys, file permissions. After user management, another important topic we are going to discuss in the Linux operating system, that is file permissions. Okay. Now, so in the Linux, for every file, some permissions will be available. And those permissions are divided into three types, guys. In the Linux, the file permissions are divided into three types. One is read permission, second one is write permission, and third one is execute permission. Read, write, and execute permissions will be available. So here R character will represent read permission, W character will represent write permission, X will represent execute permission. And for every file, we will have three sections of permissions will be available. So three types of permissions. These permissions are divided into three sections, guys. User, that means whenever we create a file, which user is created that file, that user is called owner. f1.txt file is available. f1.txt file is created by Raju. Raju is called owner of that file. Okay, and Raju group also having permissions on this file. So user permissions will be available, group permissions will be available, and other user permissions on this file. So this file permissions are divided into three types in the Linux machine. Read permission, write permission, and execute permission will be available. And these permissions are divided into three sections, guys. User, group, and others. So the permissions will be represented like this. Read, write, execute, read, write, execute, read, write, execute. So total 9 characters will be available in the file permissions. Read, write, execute, read, write, execute, read, write, execute. First 3 characters will represent owner permissions. Owner means the user who created that file. First 3 characters will represent the owner permissions. The middle 3 characters will represent the group permissions. Last 3 characters will represent in the Linux machine other users available, right? How to check the other users? cat/etc/password. So in this Linux machine, there are so many other users are available. Raju created a file called f1.txt. Then Anil, Geeta, Sita, Ram, Ashok, Charlie, EC2 user. These all are called as other users in the Linux machine. What other users can do on the file will be represented by last 3 characters. So in the Linux, everything will be represented as a file, and for that file, 3 sections of permissions will be available. Owner permissions will be available. Group permissions will be available. Others permissions will be available. That permissions will be represented by using R, W, X. R means read, W means write, X means execute. Okay? RWX, RWX, RWX. First 3 characters represents owner permissions. First 3 chars will represent user, nothing but owner who created that file, owner permissions. Okay, middle 3 characters will represent the group permissions. Middle 3 chars will represent group permissions. That group, Raju group is available. Raju group means the users belongs to Raju group will have those permissions. Last 3 characters will represent other user permissions on the file. Last 3 characters will represent other user permissions. Other users permission. Other users nothing but in this machine, multiple users can have the accounts. Raju created this file. Raju is called owner. Along with Raju, there are some other users also available in this Linux machine. What permission is available for other users in the machine for this file will be represented by last three characters. Now suppose if we have the permission like this, rw-rw x hyphen or else rw hyphen. So when you want to remove the permission for the particular section hyphen, so actually first three characters rwx represents owner permissions, but here rw instead of x hyphen is available. Nothing but the user don't have execute permission on the file. So R means read, W means execute, right? First three characters will represent user permission, nothing but owner. The next, the middle three characters will represent the group permissions. The last three characters will represent other user permissions on the file. Suppose if you see RW hyphen, RWX, RW hyphen. So when we write like this, in this file, suppose these are the permissions available for f1.txt. So what is the meaning of that? First three characters rw hyphen x is missing. Nothing but user having read plus write permission. That's it. For the user, execute permission is not available. Instead of execute hyphen, hyphen means that execute permission removed for the user. Then if you take the middle three characters rwx, for the group all the permissions available. rwx available, nothing but group is having read plus, write plus, execute. And last three characters if you see rw hyphen is available. Others having read plus, write permission only. So how to understand the file permissions in the Linux? R character will represent read permission, W character will represent write permission, X character will represent execute permission. And the file permissions are divided into three sections. Owner permissions on the file, group permissions on the file, other users permissions on that file. So total 9 characters will be available on the file permissions. First three characters will represent owner permissions, middle three characters will represent group permissions, last three characters will represent other users permissions. Okay, but if you see the scenario 1, in the scenario 1, rw hyphen, rwx, rw hyphen is available. So first three characters rw hyphen x is missing. That means for the owner, execute permission not available on the file. For the group, 3 permissions available. For others, only read and write is available. And let me take the second scenario here. Second scenario. So here r hyphen x, r hyphen hyphen, and r hyphen hyphen. So if I write like this for a file called f2.txt. Now, can you tell me who is having which permissions on the f2 file, guys? Can you understand this file permission and can you tell me who is having which permissions on the f2.txt? Can you guys tell me who is having which permissions on the f2.txt? I want answers from you. I want answers from you. Are you guys with me? I'm not getting response. Only few people are responding in the chat box. Only few people are responding in the chat box. Right. Now observe. First three characters will represent owner permissions. First three characters r-x. Nothing but user having read plus execute. Users can read that file and users can execute that file. Then next one, if you take second three characters, middle three characters, then we are having R hyphen hyphen, nothing but group having only read permission. Then last three characters we have R hyphen hyphen, others having only read permission. Are you able to understand file permissions in the Linux? In the Linux operating system, everything will be represented as a file, and to secure that files, we can use permissions here. Permissions will be represented with three characters: read, write, and execute. So every file will have three sections of permissions: user permissions, group permissions, others permissions. User means the owner who created that file. Others means the other users available in the same Linux machine. Now, let me take another scenario. Third scenario. I'm taking hyphen W hyphen, then R hyphen X, then R W X. This is the permission for f3.txt. Now, can you tell me who is having which permission on that file? Now tell me who is having which permission on that file? Who is having which permission on that file? Are you guys responding? Good. Now check it, guys. So here, first three characters hyphen W hyphen. So user having only write permission. Then next three characters R hyphen X. Nothing but group having read plus execute. Others having read write execute. RWX. Others having read plus write plus execute permission. Are you clear with my point? Right. Now, I want to show you the files which we have created and see the permissions on that file. Connection got disconnected. Let me go with the duplicate session. Login as Raju. Password. Yeah. I connected with this machine. Right. Now, let's check it. ls-l f1.txt. Now, let me create touch f2.txt. Clear. ls-l. Now, can you see by default what permissions available for the F1 file? Who is having which permissions on the F1, F2? I created new files, and can you check and tell me who is having which permissions on the file? F1 and F2. Who is having which permissions? Raju is the owner of this file because Raju created this file. Now, if you see, first hyphen we need to ignore, guys. The first hyphen will represent this is a text file. Okay. If you make any directory, then directory will be starting with the D. D means it is a directory. Hyphen means it is a file. Okay. So whenever we work with the files in the Linux machine, whenever we are working with the Linux machine, everything will be represented as a file. Text file, nothing but ordinary file, directory files will be available. So if the line is starting with D, then that is called as a directory file. DevOps is a directory here. If the line is starting with hyphen, that is a ordinary file. So we need to ignore that hyphen. We need to ignore that hyphen. Then consider the remaining characters. Now see who is having which permissions on the DevOps directory. Who is having which permissions on the DevOps directory? Look at the DevOps directory and tell me who is having which permission on the DevOps directory, guys. User having all three, group having read and execute, others also having read and execute. So I hope you got the clarity. How to understand file permissions in the Linux. I hope you understood how to understand file permissions in the Linux. Okay, are you clear? Now, I want to change the file permissions, guys. To change the file permissions, we will use one command called chmod command. To change file permissions in Linux, we will use chmod command. Okay, what is the command that is used to change file permissions in the Linux? To change file permissions in the Linux, we are going to use chmod command. Now, I want to add execute permission for the user. For example, now you see on the F1 file, user does not have execute permission. On the F1 file, user does not have execute permission. Now let me add it. Okay, chmod u plus x. For the user, I want to add execute permission. U means user, x means execute. U plus x f1.txt. So for the user, I want to add the execute permission on the f1.txt. Then ls-l. Now you see earlier user don't have the execute permission. Now the user is having execute permission on the f1 file. So if you want to add the permission, plus we will use. Now for the group, I want to add the write permission. Currently for the group, only read permission available on the F1. For the group, I want to add the write permission. So to add the write permission, chmod g plus w. G means group plus w means write. For the group, I want to add the write permission on the f1.txt. G plus w, ls-l. Now for the group, I have given write permission. For the user, I have added execute permission. For the group, I have added write permission. So plus is used to add the permission. Minus is used to remove the permission. For example, for the user, I want to remove the read permission. Then what I will do? chmod u minus r f1.txt. For the user, I have removed read permission on the F1 file. User is having only write permission and execute permission. I have removed read permission. When I remove the read permission, execute cat command. Am I able to read the content on the file? Am I able to read the file content by using cat command? It is saying permission denied. So I am Raju. I created this file. I am the owner of this file. For the owner, read permission is not available. That's why Raju not able to cat the file. What is the purpose of cat? Cat is used to print the content of the file. Raju not able to read the content of the file because Raju don't have read permission on the file. How I removed read permission for the Raju? chmod u minus r. For the owner, I have removed read permission. Are you able to understand? So in this Linux machine, I have created one important file. I don't want anybody to read my file. I don't want anybody to write the data to my file. I want to secure my file. Other users should not be able to read the data. Other users should not be able to write the data to the file. So can we remove those read and write permissions for other users also? Can we remove that read and write permission for other users on this file? So that they cannot read the file, they cannot write the data to the file. So these file permissions we are using to manage our files securely. I don't want other users to work on my files. So I logged into this machine as a Raju user. I created some files, very important files, my configuration files available. I don't want other users to work with my files now. Okay, so what we can do here, you can remove the permissions or you can add the permissions. So what is the command we are using? Chmod command we are using. So how to give execute permission for the user? U plus X command we are using to give the execute permission for the user. How to give write permission for the group? G plus W command to give the write permission for the group. How to remove execute permission from others? O minus X. U plus X means for user execute permission we are adding. G plus W for the group we are adding write permission. O minus X for others we are removing execute permission. Now for example, remove all permissions for other users. Remove all permissions for other users. So can you guys tell me the command which is used to remove all permissions for other users? Other users should not access my file. I want to remove all the permissions for others. Yes, the command is chmod o minus rwx. That's it. Multiple permissions we can add at a time. Multiple permissions we can remove at a time. Chmod o minus rwx. So it will remove all three permissions for other users on the f1.txt. Okay, let's try this one. Now check this ls-l f1.txt. Others are having read permission. Okay, then you can execute like this. Chmod o minus rwx f1.txt. Now other users don't have any permission on the file. Okay, can we give all the permissions for the user on the file? Can we give all the permissions for the user on the file? What is the command to give all permissions for the user on the file? Yes, so for this we are using chmod command u plus rwx on f1.txt. So for the user, now I have given all the permissions. User can read, user can write, user can execute. Group is having read, write. Others don't have any permission. So based on the requirement, whatever the files you are keeping in the machine, you can control the permissions on the file by using chmod command. Can we add multiple permissions at a time? Can we add multiple permissions at a time? Can we remove multiple permissions at a time? We can add multiple permissions at a time. We can remove multiple permissions at a time. And currently we are dealing with the file permissions in the alphabetical form. U, O, G. Users, groups, others. Read, write, execute. Same thing we can do by using numerics also in the lines. The file permissions can be represented in the numeric format also, guys. So when we are dealing with the Linux, you can represent file permissions in the numeric format. So what is the meaning of this numeric format? Numbers. O, 0. 0 means no permission. So if you give 0, that means you are removing all the permissions for that file. 1 represents execute permission. Okay. File permissions can be represented by using alphabets and by using numerics also. In the numeric, 0 represents no permission, 1 represents execute permission, 2 represents write permission, 3 represents 2 plus 1, write plus execute. Okay, when you use 3 will represent execute plus write. Okay, then we can say write plus execute. 2 plus 1. 3 means they will calculate it as 2 plus 1. 2 permission is write. 1 permission is execute. Are you clear with my point? 0 means no permission. 0 means no permission. 1 means execute. 2 means write. Then 3 means write plus execute. 3 means write plus execute. 4 means only read. 4 represents only read permission. 5 represents 4 plus 1. 5 means 4 plus 1, that will represent read plus execute. When you give permission as 5, number 5 will represent read plus execute. When you go for permission number 6, when you go for the 6, that will represent 4 plus 2, read plus write. 4 plus 2, read plus write will be applicable for the 6. When you go for 7, when you go for the permission 7, this is 6 plus 1. 7 means 6 plus 1, that considers read, write plus execute. So when you go for 7, 7 will represent all the permissions. Read plus, write plus, execute. These are numeric numbers also we can use in order to represent permissions. 7 means everything. All the permissions will come when we use 7. 6 means read plus write. 5 means read plus execute. 4 means only read. 3 means write and execute. 2 means only write. 1 means only execute. 0 means no permissions. Seven, you can do anything. 4 plus 2 plus 1 also fine. 4 plus 2 plus 1 also. When you go for 7, read, write, execute. 1 means execute, 2 means write, 4 means read. This is the standard we are going to follow to represent file permissions in the Linux. Read the numbers. File permissions in the numeric format. 4, 2, 1. Read, write, execute. Which permission is recommended? That depends on your scenario, sir. What permissions you want to give. There is no standard. Mostly people will use numeric formats to deal with file permissions in the Linux. If you are not comfortable with the numerics, then you can go for alphabets also. Anything is fine. When the file is having execute permission for the owner, then it will display in the green color. Okay. When the file is displaying in the green color, that means you have execute permission on that. You got my point? Yeah. Now, if I go and execute a command called chmod 777 on the f1.txt. What is the meaning of the 777, guys? All permissions for all. User will have read write execute, group will have read write execute, others will have read write execute. First 7 will represent user, user will have all. Second 7 will represent group will have all. Third 7 will represent others will have all. Now let me go and execute it. chmod 777 f2.txt. f2.txt. Then ls-l. Earlier, f2 is having only few permissions. Now, f2.txt came to green color. That means we have execute permission. rwx, rwx, rwx. How we gave all permissions for the f2? By using 777. 777 will represent all permissions for all three types. User will have all permissions. Group will have all permissions. Others will have all permissions. Suppose instead of 777, if I give only 17, then f2.txt. Now tell me, I'm giving only 17. Instead of 777, I'm giving 17. Then what happens? User will have all permissions, huh? No. When I give single 7, which is equal to 007. Now you see, when I give single 7, only others are having all permissions. For user, for group, permissions are removed. That means when I give 7, which is equal to 007. So three sections are there in the permission. User section, group section, other section. When I give single 7, then only others getting the permissions. Users and groups, nothing. No permission. So 7 is equal to 007. Similarly, if I give chmod 777 f2.txt, then what will happen? If I give 777, then what is the meaning of that? It is equal to 077. It is equal to 077. Group and others will have all the permissions. Now you see, when I give 777, user don't have any permission, group having all permissions, others having all the permissions. Are you clear? Are you clear with my point? Okay. Now, suppose if I give chmod 111 f2.txt. What is the meaning of 111? What is the meaning of 111? Only execute permission for all the users. If I give 222, if I give 222, only write permission. Only write permission. If I give 456, chmod 456 on f2.txt, what is the meaning of 456? If I give 456, then what will happen, guys? 4 means read. User will get the read permission. 5 means read and execute. Group will get the read and execute. Others will get read and write. Yeah. In the interview, they will ask you a question like this. When we create a file in the Linux machine, what is the default permission for that file? What is the default permission for the directory? Okay. So in the interview, they will ask these two questions. When I create a file in the Linux, can you tell me what permissions will be available by default in the numeric format? When I create a directory, what permissions will be available by default for the directory? Can you tell me that in the numeric format? Okay, so that means here I'm going to create one new file, ls-l. Let me create touch f3.txt. I created a f3 file. What is the default permission for the f3? What is the default permission for the f3 in the numeric format? User is having read and write permission. Group is having only read. Others are having only read. So what is the default permission for the file? 644. What is the default permission we are getting for the file? User having read write. Read write means 6. Others having only read. Group is also having only read. 644 is the default permission. Similarly, if I create a directory mkdir aws. Now, what is the default permission for the directory? What is the default permission for the directory? 644 for the file default. For the directory, what is the default permission? Read, write, execute 7. Only read. Only read means what is the number? Read, write, execute 7. Read, execute. Read, execute. Which number will represent read, execute? 5. 755 is the default permission. 644 is the default permission for the file. 755, 644 is the default permission for the file in the Linux, and 755 is the default permission for the directory. Write means you can modify the file data. Execute means if it is a shell script program, you can run that program. Write means you can modify the data. Read means you can print the data. Execute means you can run the, if it is a program, then you can run that. Are you clear? Yeah. What is the main use of these file permissions in the Linux? What is the main use of these file permissions in the Linux? To secure our files, to protect our data. The main aim of these file permissions, to protect our files, to manage access for our files. Read permission, write permission, execute permission. Yeah, good guys. In Linux, file permissions are divided into 3 types: read permission, write permission, and execute permission. In every file, there are 3 types of sections available: user, group, and other users in the machine. Who is having accounts? Owner means who created that file. Group, what is the user group belongs to this file. Group permission means the users belongs to that group will have those permissions. What is the meaning of group permission on the file? So if you keep the users in that particular group, the users belong, group permissions means the users belongs to the group will have those permissions. Others means who are not owners, who are not part of that group. The remaining users are called as other users. Okay. And there is another command available in the Linux, guys. We discussed about chmod command. which is used to deal with the file permissions in the Linux. Then similarly, there is another command in the Linux which is called chown command. What is the purpose of chown command in the Linux? Chown command is used to change ownership. Currently, Raju created this file. Raju is the owner of this file. Now I want to change the owner. Okay. So you will purchase one car. That car you will do registration on your name. After 2 years you are selling that car, then the registration also will change. Ownership will be transferred. I purchased one house. It is registered on my name. After 1 year, I'm selling my house. Then ownership also will be transferred. So similarly, in the Linux machine, we can transfer the ownership of the file and directory. To transfer ownership and the file and directory, we will use a command called chown command. What is the purpose of chown command? Chown command is used to change file or directory ownership. How to change the owner of the file? By using chown command. Changing the owner. Chown, who is the new owner for which file? Okay. Which user you want to make as the owner? Name of the owner. For which file or directory you want to change the ownership. Okay. Sudo chown command. New owner for the file or directory. Let me show you here ls-l. Okay. F3 file available. For the F3 file, these are the permissions available. Raju is the owner. Owner group is Raju group. This is the date when the file is created. Currently, Raju is the owner. Let me change the ownership. Sudo chown command. I want to make EC2 user as the owner for the f3.txt. Currently, the owner is Raju. Now, I'm going to change that. We trust we have received the lecture from the local system. Usually, it will boils down these three things. Respect the privacy of others. Think before you type. With great power comes great responsibility. For security reasons, the password you type will not be visible. So when I am changing the ownership, it is asking my password. Then I have given the password. Now you see, for the F3 user earlier, Raju was the owner. Then I have executed chown command EC2 user. When I'm changing the ownership, it is asking for the password of Raju. I entered. Then the owner is changed to EC2 user. The owner is changed to EC2 user. Are you guys able to understand how to transfer the ownership? Are we able to understand how to transfer the ownership? Similarly, we can change the owner group also. Okay. You can change the owner group also. You can change the owner. You can change the owner group also. So how to change the owner group? Before the group name, we will just give the colon. If you don't give the colon, it will consider as the owner name. If you give the colon, it will consider as a group. How to see what are the groups available? cat/etc/group. Okay. There are several groups available. EC2 user group, Charles group, Ashok, Ram, Sita, Geeta, Anil, Raju, like that. There are several groups available. So let me create one more group. Sudo group add DevOps. I created a DevOps group. cat/etc group. DevOps group is available. Now let me go to this F3 file. Yes, F3 file belongs to EC2 user. EC2 user is the owner of that file. But owner group is still belongs to Raju. I want to change the owner group also. Then sudo chown :DevOps. That is the new group name for the f3.txt. Now ls-l F3 file belongs to DevOps owner group. Okay. You can change the owner, you can change the owner group also. And remember, when we are changing the owner group, group name, can we change both at a time? Can we change both at a time? Yes, owner group name you can change at a time on the file. Can we change both at a time? Yes, both we can change at a time. chown command, which is used to change the ownership. chmod command, which is used to change file permissions. So what is the difference between chmod command and chown command in the Linux? chmod command is used to change the chmod command is used to change the file permissions. chown command is used to change the ownership of the file or owner group of the file. Ownership of the file or group of the file can be changed by using this chown command. Are you clear? If you want to get back the owner, yes, you can change it back, right? Now, this file is created by Raju, F3. Okay, ls-l. F3, currently the owner is EC2 user. The owner group is DevOps. I want to change it back. Sudo chown Raju f3.txt. Then that file came back to Raju as owner. Now again I make Raju as the owner. Raju owner group. Raju is the owner for the F3. All good. Thank you guys. So today we discussed mainly how to connect with the Linux machine by using password based authentication, how to connect with the machine by using username and password, and what are file permissions in the Linux, how to play with the file permissions by using chmod command, and how to change the ownership of the file by using chown command. Very good. Thank you. Okay. Perfect. Tomorrow we'll talk about some networking commands and we'll start with we'll talk about link files and we'll talk about networking commands and package managers available. Okay, good. Thank you guys. Thank you. With this, I'm stopping for today. We'll meet again in the tomorrow session.